Hi everyone! Welcome to today's Thursday craft at the Tulare Public Library. My name is Brittany and I'm going to be your disembodied guide today to have the camera close enough to the drawing so that everyone can see exactly what's happening. I'm just going to be off-site a little bit, walking you through this drawing today, so I hope that works for everyone. So today we are going to learn how to draw our own adult coloring pages. I have chosen an elephant because it's absolutely my favorite animal, but they do have a lot of templates and guidelines for different animals or different designs, geometric shapes and layouts, if you're interested in doing something else for your own adult coloring page. But I hope this ends up being a really good starting point. And I'm really excited to show you guys. So before I start, I also wanted to provide a book pairing. Now I realize that this is probably going to be backwards for you all, so I do apologize about that. But I highly recommend this book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. If you are interested in learning the basics of drawing or increasing your drawing skills, whether you're a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced drawer, I highly recommend this book. There's so many great things about shapes, contouring, shading, and there's even this really great section at the end that talks about how to draw portraits or people. So highly suggest that. We have multiple copies in the SJVLS Tulare library system, so give us a call at the library or reserve your copy on the website or the app. So let's get started today. So when we're first looking at this elephant, I know that it may be a bit overwhelming to figure out where to start, but what we're going to do is break it down into the simplest basic shapes and build it from there. In the book I just recommended talks a lot about that, so if you're looking for additional tips, then that's a great place to start. So if we can look past the detail of the shading inside the shapes, what we're going to do is identify the basic shapes and then copy those over and start from there. So when I'm looking at this elephant head, I notice what looks to be like an oval. So with my red Sharpie here, I am going to outline that. I should have mentioned at the beginning, all you need at home is a piece of paper, a pencil with an eraser, and a Sharpie or a marker if you have it to do the outlining. You don't need the red, I just wanted to outline what I'm going to be talking about today. So I see an oval, so I'm just going to outline the elephant's head in red. Now the trunk is connected to the head, but for the purpose of identifying the shapes, I'm just going to go around like that. Now, when I look at these ears, the basic shape that I see are a triangle. So I'm going to outline a triangle. Now, it doesn't match the ears exactly, but that's okay. Just for the sake of figuring out what we're doing here, I'm going to start it like this. Okay, so I've got my other triangle here. And again, remember, we're going to start drawing in just a moment, so you can just follow along as I'm doing this. For the trunk, it looks like a long, skinny rectangle, a little bit wider at the base and tapering in. So I'm going to do a rectangle. For the tusks, to me, it looks like a J and an inverted or reverse J. So I'm going to outline the tusks just like that. Okay, there's my J, and then on the other side, I've got a J also. One more thing to keep in mind about the tusks is you'll notice there's empty space inside. No lines go through the tusk, which gives us the sense that the tusks are in front of the legs, in front of the body. So when we transfer that over to do our own drawing, we're going to keep that in mind. And last but not least, we're going to outline the legs. So again, I'm looking at the legs as one unit for now instead of each individual leg. And what I see is a rectangle that's a little bit wider at the top than they are at the bottom. So I've got my rectangle. Okay, so these are our basic shapes that we are going to use to then create our own. So I'm going to grab my handy pencil with an eraser in case I need it, and I'm going to transfer over these shapes to my paper. So what I'm going to start with is the circle of the head. Now, when I'm drawing the basic shapes, I want to use light pressure with my pencil because I'm going to be going over these shapes again to create the contours. So I'm just going to do a really lightly drawn oval or circle, And then I'm gonna do the ears next, the triangle. So I'm gonna put a triangle on the side with the tip pointing out. And again, I'm just trying to center this on my paper just like our elephant is centered in the reference photo. Okay, so are we all following? I hope everyone's good. We've got our circle, we've got our triangles. Next, I'm gonna work on the trunk, which is this long, skinny rectangle. So again, I'm gonna start with it tapered out, meaning a little bit wider at the base and coming down just a little bit. And I'm just trying to kind of eyeball it and make sure that the shapes end and start at the same place on the paper. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just a good guideline. So this is my long rectangle for the trunk. Next, I want to create my tusks. So I'm going to do a J and then a backwards J. So to do that, I notice that the tusk starts kind of right where the head tapers down and becomes the trunk. So if I'm looking at the same spot on mine, I want to kind of start it right here where the head tapers into the trunk. So I'm just going to do a straight line down. You're kind of moving vertically towards the corner of the paper. Straight line down. And I'm going to hook it to look like a J, and then I'm just going to go back up like that. And then I'm going to do it on the other side. So I've got my J here, moving vertically towards the corner of the paper, hook up, and then I'm going to create the three-dimensional. Okay, last but not least, I've got the rectangle that's going to represent the legs. So again, they're going to stop a little bit lower than the trunk, and they're going to start kind of, just a couple inches in from the ear, wider at the top, tapering down to be a little bit thinner at the bottom. So I'm going to start mine about right here. I'm going to taper down, and then I'm going to start here and taper down. Now you'll notice, just like in the drawing, I'm not putting a solid line through the tusk. I'm keeping that space empty and white because I want the appearance that my tusks are in front of the legs, and that's what's going to create that. Okay, so now that we have our general shapes, what I'm going to do is go through and draw darker lines to create the contour so it looks a little bit more realistic. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with the head. What I notice is, rather than a perfect oval, it's wider at the skull. It comes in a little bit and then out a little bit to create that jawline. And then again, even though we did a circle and a rectangle, the head is fully connected to the trunk. So I'm not going to keep this hard line here. I'm going to erase that and connect the two. So let's start and see what we come out with. Okay, so I'm going to do a wide, and I'll try to move my hand as best I can. I'm going to do a wide line, and again, this is following the circle that I've created. I'm going to start to taper in a little bit and taper back out to create that jawline. And then when I get here, I'm just going to follow the trunk down instead of making it a hard circle. So I'm going to follow the trunk down. Okay, now I'm going to start here and then connect it at the bottom. So again, I'm going around. I'm bringing it in just a little bit. I'm bringing it out just a little bit again to create that jawline. And when I get here, I'm going to keep going to create the trunk. And then I notice there's just a little bit of a hook for the trunk here, so I'm going to create that. I'm just going to slide out and do a little bit of a hook. Okay, so you don't have to do this. You can save all the erasing till the end, because we are going to go over it with Sharpie, but just to give you a better sense of kind of how we're moving along here, I'm just going to erase the lines that we have already done for those big blocky shapes. That way we get to see a little bit more of our realistic looking elephant. Okay, so what do we think so far? All right, so now what we're going to do is, I'm just going to go over these lines again. So now what we're going to do is create the ears. So I noticed in looking at this that the ears have a bit of a contour outside of the triangle shape, and then they don't have the hard point or hard edge, and then they contour outside of the triangle a bit. So as best I can, I'm going to keep that shape when I'm creating the ears. So following my guide of my triangle, I'm going to connect them to the head right here. I'm going to contour outside of the line of the triangle. before I come to the point, I'm just gonna round in, and then I'm gonna dip a little bit below the line of the triangle and do a curved edge up. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. It contours above the triangle. It doesn't have the hard edge. It stops a little bit before, and it contours below the triangle. So again, I'm gonna start connecting to the head. I'm gonna do the contour outside of the triangle line. I'm gonna come just a little bit before this point and do a rounded edge. And I'm gonna contour a little bit below the straight triangle line here and bring it up as a rounded edge to connect to my elephant shape. So you'll see how we use these triangle guides as a way to create our more realistic looking contoured ears. And again, we can erase at the end. You don't have to do this as we go along, but I want you to get a sense of how close to the original drawing it starts to look when we make these small contours and adjustments. Okay, so I'll get my chubby little hands out of the way here in just a moment, but I'm just gonna erase here. Okay, perfect. So here's where we are so far. Now what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna fill in the tusks. So these are a little janky looking, so as much as I can, I'm just gonna straighten the lines and make the points look a little less hook-like, a little less accentuated, and then we'll go ahead and do the legs. So I'm just gonna follow the original line that I did. I know it's a little bit hard to see, I'll move. So I'm just gonna go down. And again, I can kind of adjust as I go. So I'm gonna go down and do just a little bit less of a hook. Okay, so I'm gonna erase my original lines here, and then I'm gonna do it on the other side. So I'm gonna go down diagonally, following the line, just a little bit less of a hook, and then up all the way. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to do my legs. So I'm going to draw this in as one unit, and then we'll separate a little bit later. So the one thing I want us to note is at the bottom where the feet are, it contours out a little bit. It's not this hard blocky edge. You'll notice that, you know, the front leg and then the side legs kind of have this contour, this curved line. So that's what we're going to do as well. So it looks to me that these legs are a little bit wider than these. So I'm just going to start a little bit inside of the original shape that I drew. And I'm going to move my hand here in a minute. So I'm just kind of creating slightly inside of the original shape that we did a darker line. Now, again, like I mentioned, we don't want to do a hard line through the tusk because we want those to appear that they're the most forward-facing object. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't do a hard line through those. And then for the feet, all I'm going to do is as I come down, I'm just going to try to create a more curved line. So I'm going to curve in a little bit and then out a little bit to create that foot. I'm going to come straight across because it is a flat line. And then you could either loop up this way, but I'm going to start at the top again. So a little bit inside of where I originally was, I'm going to start drawing the legs down. Remember, no hard lines through the tusks. And when I get closer to the foot here, I'm just going to contour out a little bit. It's as simple as that. Okay, so now I'm going to just get rid of these lines so we get a sense of how realistic this is starting to look. Okay. All right, now I do want to separate the feet. So if you look over here, you notice there's one primary foot in front and then two in the back. So when I look at this, I see a leg line here and a leg line coming up here and here. So it looks like there's really only 3 legs, but I'm going to follow that. So I'm going to create this leg line that kind of connects with the trunk here. So all I have to do is start at the trunk, go down, and I do want to create that contoured shape at the bottom to indicate a foot. And then my other one is kind of halfway between the tusk and the trunk. So what I'm going to do is start about halfway between the tusk and the trunk, do a leg line, and again, I'm just going to contour out so that I've got my leg there. Okay. Now really quickly, because this is a coloring page and we want these beautiful black lines, I'm just going to outline this in a Sharpie. So I'm just following all of the lines that I just created. Sometimes I get a little off and that's okay. I'm going to do the ears here. Up, I'm going to do the legs. I'm going to do the other ear. And then the last thing we'll have to do is the eyes before we start creating these beautiful decorative inside shapes. So we'll go over that first. Okay. And again, like for me, I definitely have pencil lines showing around the Sharpie, but that's something that I can always clean up later. If you give the Sharpie just a little bit of time to dry, then you can go through with an eraser and just erase everything. It'll take care of all those pencil lines for you, and you'll still have your nice solid outline with the Sharpie here. Okay, so I think I got everything. All right, fabulous. Okay, so last but not least, I'm gonna add the eyes. Now, if I look at where the eyes sit in the elephant head, I'm gonna cut it in half, and I notice they're right below the halfway point, and they're slightly outside of center. Like if this is my center mark, they're closer to the outside. And if I look at the shape, what they are is kind of like a watermelon seed shape, slightly tilted. So I'm going to create that here. Now, I'm feeling a little brave, so I'm just going to use my Sharpie, but remember, whether you're doing the inside decorations or the eyes, you can always use pencil first and then go over it in marker. I'm feeling free and wild today, and I kind of like seeing what comes out if I just go straight for it. So I'm going to measure, if this is the halfway mark and this is closer to outside, I'm going to start here and do my eyes kind of like that. Okay, so all it is drawing a half circle and then drawing another half circle to meet it. Now, if you notice in this original drawing, there are 2 dots of white. I'm going to do the same thing. I notice in drawing in general that it's really great. You can make really small details that make a really big difference in taking something from 3-dimensional to 2-dimensional. So if we fill these in as all black, it would look 2-dimensional. If we fill them in with a little glare of white, which I'm going to do here just by circling and just by circling on the outside, if I leave those glares of white, it looks a little cross-eyed now, but that's okay, let's fill them in. It gives the sense that light is reflecting off of these glassy, watery eyes. So it's just those small things that the longer you draw, you start to figure out. Okay, so I've got my 2 eyes filled in. Now what we're gonna do is go through and decide which details that we wanna include. So let's start with this ear here. This ear, I notice, has sections that are kind of just straight lines, and we can fill them in as we want. So I'm gonna do that right now. And I do notice that there are also these kind of semicircles on the side of the head. So I'm gonna block those in, and then we can fill those in too. Now remember, especially for you beginners, you can make this as simple or as ornate as you want. If this looks too overwhelming, simplify it. So I'm gonna do my best to show you the simplified version, which we can then add to later. But for now, I'm gonna do these 2 semicircles. So just kind of where it is on the head in our reference, I'm gonna do 2 circles here, okay? And then I'm gonna create, just like the lines here, I'm gonna create these sections. So I'm just gonna follow the outside contour of the ear, outside, outside, okay? And let's start with the top. So here I see a lot of perpendicular lines. Some are heavy blocks, some are zigzags, some are parallel lines. So let's just create our own version. And I'm gonna simplify it a little bit. They're not gonna be as ornate. So let's do a thick black line right here. And again, if you wanna draw this with your pencil first and go over it with the marker later, that's totally okay. And then I'm just gonna do a couple more sections like this. And let's make them a little closer because I want space to do my zigzags. So next, I'm gonna create this zigzag shape by either doing upside down V's or just thinking in my mind, I'm gonna do a zigzag. So I'm gonna start in the corner, go up, come down, and go up. Let's do them a little tighter right here. So we're doing upside down V's, M's, W's, however you wanna look at it. And I'm gonna do them right here as well. The thing to keep in mind with adult coloring pages is the more ornate and compartmentalized they are, the more fun they are to color in. So be as detailed as you feel comfortable with, but if you can, just create these really small spaces because it really helps you zen out when you're coloring it. So the other thing I see are these lines parallel to the top of the ear. So I'm just going to create some of those in these spaces. So I'm going to start here. I hope you can see me all right. And I'm just creating lines parallel to the top and the section. Okay, I'm going to add one more line in here because why not? And I'm just going to add some dots. So I'm just simply touching the Sharpie to the paper to create these dots. Now these aren't compartmentalized sections, but it will give you a sense of, even if there's a solid color behind, there being some kind of design there. All right, fabulous. So you can fill in the other parts of this as you want. I'm just going to create some lines. Let's do one zigzag, and let's do parallel lines here. Okay, good. So now I notice that this next section has these beautiful swirls. We can do less than that, but still keeping the primary concept the same. So there are two ways you can do this. If you feel comfortable doing swirls, what you're going to do is start in the middle, start to draw circles, but then just never meet the last line and verge out. And then again, I'm not going to draw a solid line through my little decorations here, but I'm going to go around and pick up where it would leave off. If you don't feel totally comfortable with a swirl, you could do circles inside of circles. So we're going to do a circle here in the middle. We're going to go a little wider and do a circle here. We're going to go a little wider and do another circle. So however you want this to look is how you can do it. Okay. Last but not least, this one is a little bit simple. We're just going to do these arched lines. Again, the more sections you have to color in, the more fun it is. And let's try a crosshatch design. So in this little section here, remember that I want to keep my half circles. I'm just going to do parallel lines one way, and then parallel lines perpendicular to that. So what that means is, then I'm going to start up here and make parallel lines so that I'm creating this checker design. Now, in these semicircles next to the head, I just noticed that there's layers. So that's all I'm going to do. Layers of dark marker. Maybe I can do some dots around the outside. I can do semicircles, make it look like rainbows, however you want to fill that in. Okay, so let's do a simplified version of the head here. So I noticed this beautiful diamond, almost with like these lotus flowers between the eyes there. I'm going to try to create that myself. So I'm just going to draw a diamond shape with contoured edges. So right in the middle and slightly above the eyes. So you'll notice this is my halfway mark, and the lotus and diamond start above and are centered in the middle. So I'm going to kind of do the same. This is my halfway mark, above and centered. I'm just going to create a diamond there. So there's the top. So you're basically doing a triangle and then an upside down triangle and a triangle. This one's filled in, so let's do that too. Why not? Whenever you're drawing, it's always nice to have areas of really dark contrast to make the other areas, the lighter areas, or the areas that you're coloring pop out. So we've got our diamond, and then I just noticed there's like these little flower petal shapes. So I'm just going to do that. They don't have to be perfect. I'm literally just drawing semicircles around the diamond shape. They don't even have to be equidistant, just the best you can do. There we go. And then I noticed there's this larger kind of circle shape around it with this beautiful little petal shape on top. So I'm just going to do that and see how it goes. Okay, so I'm doing like a half, and I notice it kind of bridges at the top of the trunk. So I'm going to do that too. Bridge. And then I'm going to come around the bottom. So I'm going to do like a half circle, come around the bottom. We're going to do this petal shape on top. Okay. And then I'm going to, I noticed this line around the eyes, and I'm just going to do that same thing and bring it all the way down to the trunk. So I'm going to do this line kind of between the eyes, bridging to that, to the part near the nose bridge. Same thing. Between the eyes and the diamond, I'm going to do this, and then I'm just going to bring it down. So I'm just going to do these like archways kind of until they meet up. Okay, so now if you look at the trunk, you'll notice it's mostly just semicircles, curved lines with different sections. So I'm just going to do that, just a straight line across. And again, some can be closer together, some can be further apart, depending on how you want yours to look. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring these down so they look more enclosed, and then connect this here. Okay, fabulous. So I noticed that a lot of these end up looking almost like teeth, like monster teeth coming together, or like flower petals, however you want to look at it. So I'm going to do a lot of those shapes. So let's just choose, you know, right here and right here. Here I'm going to do half circles where the curvature is above. And here I'm going to do the exact mirror image, meaning half circles, but the curve is below. Again, the great thing about these coloring pages is you don't have to have drawing experience because most of it is just drawing shapes, and anyone can really do that. So I'm just gonna add, let's see, let's do some dots right here. Let's do some parallel lines right here. And let's do a little heart right here, why not? Got my little heart, I've got my little heart. Make it a little girly, and then I can do my parallel lines here. I could even do more zigzags if I wanted, like if I wanted to do it right here. So whatever you want to do to fill in the trunk is fabulous. It'll look great, and I'll leave that there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is focus on the legs. So again, I don't want to draw anything that blocks out the tusk. Those are going to be front and center. But I noticed with the legs here, there's a lot of semicircles, a lot of big, beautiful, like what look like portions of circles, and then swirls at the bottom here. And then we also have the big, beautiful toenails that if you break it down, it's really just a half circle. So I'm going to add those in. So there's just one toenail on my left foot, I guess the elephant's right foot, left facing me, and then 3 of them on this front leg. So all you're gonna do is half circle, ooh, that one's big, half circle, and then half circle on the bottom there. Now, I'm gonna keep all of the designs on this side so that you guys can fill in the other side of the elephant as you want, but I'm just gonna follow suit. So if I look here, I see that there's kind of this semicircle starting at the outside and going in towards the trunk, and then almost what looks like these beautiful little fish scales. So I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna do a half circle right here like this. I'm gonna connect it behind the trunk, and I'm gonna do more half circles. So all you're doing is following the first line that you had and just widening it. So let's do my half circles here. Okay, now I'm gonna do these beautiful small like half circles for fish scales. So I'm just gonna start at the top and just going with that line, I'm gonna do my fish scales. I'm gonna do one more layer outside of it, just meeting the first line, okay? And let's just fill the whole thing in, why not? Again, the smaller sections you have to color in, the more fun it'll be. And then now on the outside leg, I notice more of these swirls. So again, I'm just gonna start in the middle, do this lollipop cinnabon shape. Lollipop cinnabon shape. If swirls aren't your thing, you could do circles. You could do more lines. You could do more zigzags. Whatever you want to do to fill in that shape. Okay, let's do some zigzags here. All right, fabulous. So now the last thing I noticed is these little parts above the toenails where it's just extra little dots or extra little accoutrements. So I'm just gonna add those in just to make it look a little bit more decorative. Okay, and then the last thing I noticed, since my elephant's cheeks are looking a little bit bare, what I'm gonna do is fill in some of the beautiful detail here on the jowls or the jaw. So what I'm gonna do is create a line parallel to the outside of the cheek and just create some nice lines there. So I'm gonna do it on this side first. So I'm just following the line of the cheek, and then I'm just gonna do some lines to break up that space. Same thing here. I'm just following the line of the cheek and then using that to break up that space there. And then same thing here. I noticed some beautiful little dots. The great thing about creating your own adult coloring pages is a lot of the beautiful fine little details are literally you just pressing the Sharpie onto the paper and creating a dot. It really goes a long way. So I'm just gonna go all the way down with that, doing the best I can. And I'm even gonna do it on the inside here. So just pen to paper, and then some nice, beautiful designs in here. All right, so this is at least the beginning of our adult coloring page. I'm gonna leave this side for you all to do on your own. You can mirror what we did here on this side, or you can do something completely different. Why not experiment? Why not try out anything that you're interested in figuring out how it looks, how you would do it. And we would absolutely love to see your creations once you're done, whether it's just the drawing or whether it's the drawing and then the coloring in afterwards. Please share. We would absolutely love to see what came of this. So thank you all so much for joining me today. I sure did have a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to keep working on my elephant off screen so it doesn't look so lopsided, but I figured this would be a good place to at least start and see where we're all going. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm just going to do some lines around the eyes. I feel like those eyes being unaccompanied looked very alien-like. Okay, so how's this looking? Okay. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for our Thursday crafts, and I hope everyone stays healthy and well. Thank you all.